Welcome. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk, Live. Welcome back to the studio. I want to take a moment here to introduce my co-host this evening. Avery is on hiatus for the next couple of weeks, so stepping in this evening at the last moment is Sunwolf coming in from
Hey,
last episode 186, where we talked about squeezing the juice. This evening, he's jumping into where we're going to meet the humbled warrior within. I also want to introduce back into the studio Kaimalu, joining us from Sedona, Arizona, where he calls home today. And of course, we have Chris Morrison coming in from the Phoenix Valley area in Arizona as well. But in this moment, I want to take a moment here to welcome our viewers. Welcome back to Real Men Real Talk Live, episode 187. And tonight's episode is all about meeting the humbled warrior within. This is one of those topics that's not so simple to break down. So we're going to do our best this evening as each one of us kind of shares our own experience with what does a humbled warrior mean? What defines a humbled warrior? And how can we meet the humble warrior within if we haven't met him or her yet? Viewers, if you have any questions or comments, we invite you to drop them down into your comment section, and we'll do our best to embrace as many of them as we can. But in this moment, Chris Morrison, I want to invite you to kick us off, get us hot, light us up, and get the show going on what does meeting the humbled warrior, what has it meant for you in your life? Do you think you've
mm,
met the humbled warrior? And what has it felt like?
thank you, Jay, for inviting me into that space. Oh, yes, and just recently, really, and having a deeper understanding of what that what humbled warrior means is. So, just kind of dive into the experience that I just had last week. I was sitting with a gentleman, and he brought up about how I need to take my kids' book into schools, and some of the thoughts that I have, and I had this really visceral reaction about like, no, I don't want to do that. I have no intention of fighting through the bureaucracy of schools, and just like all of this limitation just comes like just tumbling out of me. And my whole thing is, I want to reach out to young people directly. And like, he was so gracious as to how he leaned into that for me. And we started to explore my my adult career of how everywhere I went, as far as work wise, people would question me and limit me based off my education. Oh, there's no way you can do that. There's no way you can do this. And every job application I ever filled out always had, do you have a certain type of degree in a certain space? And I don't know how many times I came across, I had the conversation of, oh, you don't have a degree? Why? Why? How? What? That real deep insecurity of feeling less than permeated all of my work. And so I became one of those people. So it's like I wore that as a chip on my shoulder. It was great because it was fuel in a lot of ways to go do a lot of really amazing things. But it was always with that. Let me show you. I'll show you. Don't tell me what I can and can't do. And in that moment, I was living in that. I was, when he asked me, "Hey, you should take the schools," I just switched over educators who are, educated with the engineers, and it was that like I don't want to fight that anymore. That's not where I'm at. I don't want to prove anything to anybody. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I am whole and complete and perfect as I am. And that conversation allowed me to really dig into, oh, I just told him, like, man, I don't want to fight. I don't want to go out there, and I don't want to, have to do any of this. And so we just got into this conversation about allies, right? How do I, as I go in and I share what I'm working on, how I'm doing things, it's not going to resonate with everybody. It's not going to be the thing that people are interested in, and that's beautiful and that's okay. And there's a billion different ways to go about being there for young adults and men across the world. And it doesn't have to be me. I'm not going to be the one that carries the message to every place. And so, but what I am totally open for, I'm totally excited about, is finding those people that I can meet in the middle and have that respectful, open conversation. So that was, so that's where Humbled Warrior came for me, is in that situation, right? Was I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to push my thoughts. I'm not here to break down any doors and let people know who I am.
Beautiful, beautiful. What do you make of that, Sunwolf? What did you hear, and what is the meeting the Humbled Warrior? What has that meant in your own life, man?
Wow, that's a big topic, very expansive. I think the key for me that jumps out is this: being in touch with my uniqueness, being okay with that. And I've always learned a long time ago is do what everyone else is not doing, and you don't have to follow the crowd. It's okay to be different. Yeah, it's okay to be bold. I've had issues in school. I just didn't fit in. I couldn't. They wouldn't listen to the questions I would ask. I was very critical, and I actually did 2 major term papers that all my peers said, "Don't do it. You're gonna fail. Don't do this." I said, "I'm sorry. I gotta trust my heart," and that's what really embraces my humbleness, being what is really important. So here's what happened: the articles I wrote. That is now, I was 19 then, that's over 50 years ago, the legalization of marijuana. And people laughed at me, "What are you, nuts?" The other article I wrote, term paper, was the legalization of prostitution. And people laughed at me and frowned at me, and I didn't give a shit. I needed to follow my heart. I needed to follow my truth. And I didn't give a darn's ass what everyone else really said or thought. What was very interesting is when I got my marks back, I got top grades. The professor said, "Come into my office. I want to talk to you. You were really courageous, and I want to honor and congratulate you, because I know you had a lot of peer pressure. And it's interesting how we succumb to peer pressure, how we succumb to family, how we succumb to the establishment. When we do that, we're no longer a warrior. We're a follower. We're no longer really listening to our infinite intelligence, which really resides within us." So those are 2 interesting stories that I haven't talked about in a long time. So just be true to yourself, and who gives a darn ass what anyone else says or thinks.
Beautiful, beautiful, Sunwolf. We're going to go deeper into this topic. We're going to shred this one tonight because there's many different angles that coming out. But I'm excited to hear what Kamalu has to say about meeting the Humbled Warrior in the decades that you've been alive, which is just a couple of decades now. You think you've met your Humbled Warrior? And if you have, what brought you to him, and what does it feel like to have met him?
Wow, thank you, Jay. I think, in my experience, meeting the Humbled Warrior is an ever expansive process. There's moments and times where I've had glimpses, and every time I'm in a space where I'm mentally struggling, I'm emotionally struggling, but there's this there's this will, there's this strength that permeates beyond anything that can happen to me in this physical reality. And every time I've encountered situations where I'm met with some of life's most difficult challenges, it's that strength that pulls me through at the end of the day, and that I find deeper and deeper layers of over and over again. It really comes down to what Sunwolf was saying, which is knowing who you are at your core, at your infinite, indestructible core. And when you have found that space within yourself, or I'll speak for me, when I have found that space within myself and really truly felt that, there's nothing that can happen to me in this life that diminishes that. You know, it's like it's like taking, I've seen this example in some videos before where like a professor will take a $50 or $100 bill and like crumple it up and throw it on the floor and step on it. But he asks at the end, did it lose its value? No, it didn't. And so once I've understood that about myself, I'm able to go back into that place within myself whenever I'm struggling financially, emotionally, any of these things that I've encountered as a young adult thus far. And every time there's an inner strength that I feel I strengthen that muscle. And I think moving forward, it's gonna just continue to strengthen as I develop more of a relationship with that part of who I am.
Beautiful. I love that, Kamalu. Let's just take a moment here and let what each one of you have shared just drop in for a moment. I want to share with each one of you and our viewers this evening how I've defined the humbled warrior in my own life, in my own experiences in my life. I was once a fighting warrior. I was always in a fight. Not necessarily a physical fight with others, but an internal fight. Fight, flight, or freeze. That's the fighting warrior. I always felt, even as a successful man in corporate America, that I was fighting for something. For me, the difference between a fighting warrior and a humbled warrior is when you unlace your boxing gloves and you literally go into surrender. And surrender is not a sign of weakness as a man, it's a sign of strength. The surrender I'm talking about is when you meet a part of yourself that you never even met before as the adult. It's the heart. It's the heart, it's the soul, it's the love within. It's the true essence of who we were born to be, our authentic self. And whether you overcome emotional, mental, or physical challenges, what has defined meeting that humbled warrior for me was when I had that total consciousness and clarity that in that moment, I met a part of myself that had always lived in self-doubt around that specific experience, always lived in not believing it was possible, whatever it was that I avoided facing, embracing, or doing, making choices for myself. But I will share this with you is that each time I've met that humbled warrior within, it didn't bring me to my knees in pain. It brought me to an inner strength that I didn't ever know was possible. When the naysayers, I don't care if it's your parents, if it's a teacher, if it was your peers at school, if it's your boss, your employer, if it's your partner in life, if you got one, or if it's even a doctor. that tells you you can't do something. You're not going to be able to. And when you have that moment of truth, when you do overcome, when you do have the courage to step in and meet the part of yourself that everyone told you was not possible, that is when you meet that humbled warrior. So, for example, well, I'm going to wait on that. Chris, I'm going to invite you. What are you hearing? Anything that I've said so far resonating with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The one thing for me was just what it was I was kind of reflecting on there is that that constant striving for external, right? That there's always some position, some job, something um, that I was always trying to make myself feel better, right? And so now that I understand that this is truly an inside out, not outside in, that I don't have to seek any of that. And that's where setting down, you call it the boxing gloves, I call it the sword. Like I put the sword over the mantle. I am whole. I'm complete. I get to choose how I feel at any situation, at any time, and that I don't have to allow my thoughts of I have uh, not control, because I can't control my thoughts, but I have the ability to choose which thoughts I allow myself to feel from. So there's a specific term that I'm trying to think of, and it's slipped out of my head. But the and then the other aspect of it, right, is the other, so we've got the whole work life world, and then there's the whole relationship world, and right, like I don't want to fight for a relationship ever again. I don't want to fight for making something work, and I'm fully moving away from the belief that relationships need to be hard. That's just an ugly concept for me, and moving towards yes, there will be work, and there will be effort that needs to be put into come to understanding, but just done fighting. I've fought my whole life. My earliest memories are violence. I have tattoos across my body based upon that violence. About being a warrior, I literally have warrior tattooed across my chest. And I don't have to. I now choose to live within self, return to home, return to core, and not allow all of the things to sway me from my understanding of who I am.
Wow. There is so much freedom in that. And when we as men are willing to put down that sword, as you just described it, and surrender, the part of us that's been in the fight has been the ego.
Mm-hmm.
And when we allow our ego to surrender, allow our ego to rest, and truly embrace the Some may call it our own feminine divine energy within and in a man's body, which will have both feminine and masculine energy. To me, the humbled warrior comes from the heart. It comes from the awareness of when a fight's over, we are free of our internal pain. And the ego no longer has to be there to offend or defend. But instead, in those moments, Sunwolf, we can just be who we were born to be. And when you have those defining moments, when you experience at the deepest level that reunited experience with yourself, it's extremely humbling. I'm curious, Sunwolf, what role has ego had in your life as it relates to the fighting warrior versus the humbled warrior?
It's so much easier and fun and light when we move into a proactive as opposed to a reactive. A humbled state is a more peaceful, serene state. It's a letting go, and the surrendering is a key word you said. Hey, listen, I mean, I was so often in my life, people try to manipulate me, try to cajole me. My uncle would say to me, why don't you read the newspaper to know what's going in the world? You never read the newspaper. My mom says to me, one day when you grow up, you're going to have a family, a good job, kids. And I looked at my mom at a very young age, my early teens, and I said, Ma, who said so? You said so. But that's not who I am. So I had to stand tall and strong, despite all the other opinions and judgments towards me. That is a humble warrior, to be able to say no, to be able to step up to what really, really resonates with me. Because when there's a fight, there's a leakage of energy and there's no fun. But when we accept what truly is who we are, there's a flow, there's a gliding. It's like being on skates. It's like, wow, I could fall, but still get up because I'm doing it my way. And there's a resonance. It's all about coherence. It's like when I play life, I want it to sound smooth and easy. I don't want it to have all these uneven beats and tones because it's disruptive. And it takes away from my true joy of living in the moment. So it was hard for me to challenge. You know, I didn't have any peers who really supported me. I just found me to be my best friend and to just share what was important to me. Even growing up, and these, you know, the teenagers, they want to go out here, they want to drink there. Why don't you come? And I said, you know what, guys? It just doesn't resonate. I just don't want to go out to a bar to drink. It's just not fun. So I was clear. Why would I, you know, what would I say? Why would I betray my belief and do something that doesn't fulfill me? Just to go with the status quo, just to go, you know, with the crowd, and then come back miserable because there was no fun and there was no embodiment of being who I really am meant to be.
Beautiful. I want to shift gears here, and I want to throw this out here to Kamalu. When we sell out as kids or as men, how do we recapture our divinity and truth? And what does selling out mean in its relationship with the warrior, either the fighting warrior or the humbled warrior? And this is an interesting question I proposed in a production meeting because when I mentioned the word sellout, it was interesting how where we went with the conversation, if you recall, Chris. But I'm putting this question to Kamalu, and then we'll do a little volley here tonight, and we'll let you jump in if you'd like. But again, when we sell out as kids or even as adult men, how do we recapture our divinity and our own truth?
When I hear the term sell out, the first thing that comes to mind for me is anything that causes me to go against myself, who I really am. That is me selling out. For me, in order to recapture that, find more of who I truly was, I had to listen instead of speak. I had to get quiet and really like listen to my body, not my thoughts. And the more I was able to do that, I realized my body is telling me when something feels correct and when something does not feel correct. Like what Sunwolf was just speaking on, it just doesn't resonate. My body is a perfect tool for discernment there. And that was how I started reclaiming myself, was by listening in those moments, not getting caught up in the whirlwind of what's happening around me or what people are telling me to do. Just how does this actually feel for me right now in this moment? Does it feel good? Does not feel good? And if it doesn't feel good and I do it anyways, that's my definition of selling out.
Beautiful. I love that.
Touche.
How about you, Chris? You definitely got a little triggered yesterday.
I did, didn't I, man? It was,
Yeah, Sunday night that was. Well, why did you think you get triggered, and why were you well? Where are you at with your relationship with selling out today? And how does that impact the warrior within?
where we were at in that conversation, right? Of like, just, how I had this deep experience with the movie If, and just in that moment we were talking about how the little girl in that movie gives away her childhood, right? She gives away her curiosity, she gives away her joy. And I just remember, that movie just brought me to that moment, being at my dad's funeral and having that inflection point of where I gave away my childhood, of where I gave away my my joy. I had to become a man, and then when you said that I sold out my childhood, man, whew, it just pushed a button that really lit me up, and it was just like, well, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't choose that. That was something that was, almost, that was something that was done to me. And, now I look back, and it's like, I really like Malo's, his definition of, it's where it's where the switch happened, and it's where I moved away from self. It's one of the places, right? It's one of the key signposts on the road that moved me from who I was always meant to be. Moving away from my divinity, and so yeah. It's still a term that prickly for me. It's a prickly term for me. I don't like the word that I sold out my childhood, and that's because it's.
Well, brother, we did it because we thought we needed to. We thought that's what we had to do to survive. That was the only option we saw available.
Yeah.
So it's not like placing blame or guilt
or shame.
Yep. On us for that. We did the best we could with what we knew at the time. And I feel that too, man. Like, I had to step up and be the older brother and the man of the house in some chaotic family dynamics. And that was the best option for my self-preservation, as well as for wanting to be there for my younger sister. That was the best choice available to me at that time. And I can't fault myself for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird because, like, I don't fault my little 12-year-old self, my 13-year-old self. I'm not upset with him. I'm not like, I'm deeply loving and caring, and man, and just like, I don't even have to forgive him. I don't even have to, like, there's no forgiveness there. It's just like, you didn't even know, buddy, but I got you. Like Jay shared a couple weekends ago, that mystical parent. And that's where I'm at with that decision, man. It's like, I love you, man. That should never have been pushed on you, ever, ever. And we get to go from there. We get to pick up right where you left off. And so, yeah, it's really interesting how just a simple word, 2 words, it's, it still just puts me in this thing. Being able to come from that space, being able to come from that was not a decision that I cognitively made, but having just having that, I think that for some reason that label is something that I have to kind of sit with.
Yeah,
and
what I'm hearing, Chris, is there's still a little shadow around that. And,
yeah,
what I want to definitely invite you to embrace is it's a mindset shift. And here's the mindset shift. We didn't know what we didn't know as men, as young men, and even as boys. And for me, the deepest level of meeting that humbled warrior within is accepting that every painful relationship, every painful experience that I had from the beginning of time to this moment has led me to this new relationship with myself.
yeah,
The humbled warrior is not here to live in self-deprecating emotions, feelings, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Why didn't I get it sooner? Why did I sell out? No, no. The humbled warrior accepts and understands that each one of those painful experiences in our life has led us to this moment where we see through a different set of lenses. And a set of lenses I'm talking about is around self-compassion, self-forgiveness, self-love, which is what we will lead to. And in those moments when we have that spontaneous connection right here, because of something in that moment that stirs us to meet that humbled warrior one more time, we are free.
Mm.
We are free of that shackles. We are free of that pain. It no longer has to define any part of who we are today. I met my humbled warrior just yesterday, one more time, in a physical challenge that I put myself through just yesterday. I had been to this specific canyon a few times before, but each time that I was there, I stopped before I could meet that humbled warrior, because in those prior times, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't specifically seeking to meet that warrior within, but I wasn't feeling like I was ready to risk injury, potential death, significant pain in my body, in my legs. But yesterday, when I hit that trail, that warrior showed up. Mindset. My mindset was such where there was no question, there was no doubt. And what was beautiful too is that I didn't even have to lead the way. I asked not to lead the way.
Mm.
I gave someone else the power to lead the way, to get to the highest level that we could physically scramble, free solo climb, get some cuts, get some bruises. I didn't have to be in control. All I had to do was show up and grow up for that little boy within me one more time. And when I made it to that summit, and I looked out, and what I visually saw, the depth to what I had just accomplished, I sunk down
Mm.
in a complete state of humility, in a complete state of gratitude. Because one more time, I proved to myself that I could do that, something that I didn't think I was ever capable of doing, nor did many other people think it's something that I'd ever be able to do at this point in my life
Mm.
with past medical conditions. And I'm not 33, I'm turning 63 in less than 2 weeks.
Hmm.
But what I did yesterday, when I met that humbled warrior within me one more time, I honored that. I honored it in every way.
Mm.
And when you meet that humbled warrior within, there is no doubt, there's no question, there's no indecisiveness. In those moments, that is when you are home. That is when you've met yourself one more time. Your inner strength.
Hmm.
And I tell you what, gentlemen, it can almost be addicting. Because who doesn't want to feel that, right? That's why we chase a high
Hmm.
with alcohol or with drugs. And when you're high, like I was, physically high, and it then brings you into that emotional highness, like who doesn't want to have that happen every single day? But what's interesting about that, Sunwolf, but I'm going to let you jump. Go ahead, jump in. What were you going to say?
You could tell I was going to say something. I just totally moved by what you just shared. And what was so phenomenal, you weren't concerned or interested or thinking about what's ahead of you, who's ahead, am I going to get ahead, who's going to lead. You were so enrolled in your own experience in that moment and feeling all the different things you've gone through and realize, wow, it doesn't matter what anyone went through or who's leading. What you've gone through with your medical situation and what you have moved through and relished and celebrated and squeezed the juice of that moment as you incrementally moved higher and higher, you went, wow, that is incredible. What is possible? Focused, no distraction, but focused within your inner self and trusted your inner guidance to airlift you to heights you probably have not experienced like you're sharing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I want to thank you for acknowledging that. Maybe someday we'll do a hike like that, Sunwolf.
We talked,
Maybe, maybe someday all four of us will do a hike like that. There's plenty of there's an infinite amount of trails in Sedona, Arizona that can bring you to that level of meeting that humbled warrior within. I do want to shift gears right here though, and ask each one of you, when you are able to have this new intimate relationship with yourself as a man, when you meet that humbled warrior in a very conscious way, how has it or how can it or how will it impact your relationships outside of yourself? Specifically, relationships around intimacy. Go ahead, Kamala.
Okay. Well, I don't think.
I like that. Thinking is overrated. Thinking's overrated.
You caught it. Good catch.
Tired of thinking.
Yeah.
Well, to know my humbled warrior is to know myself.
Hmm.
And when I know myself, I don't need anybody to validate who I want to be back to me. And that changes everything when it comes to relationships, because then the relationship is no longer, I'll pretend you are who you want to be, and you'll pretend that I am who I want to be from an egoic space. It becomes about helping each other become more of who we truly are. And that changes everything in a relationship. Instead of codependence, now we're co-creative. And yeah, I think it comes to the like power versus force thing. It's powerful to know who I am despite what anybody else tells me, as opposed to trying to force an idea that I want people to believe about myself onto them so they can reflect that back to me and validate that. So that's my answer to that question. That I know, I don't think.
I like that. Sunwolf, you're up.
I absolutely love what you just shared. You kind of echoed my words almost verbatim. Very, very powerful. I had a situation happen, maybe a couple of years ago, very significant. So I meet this lady, and I'm planning to go out. And she says to me, I have a lot of fear in going out with you. She saw how outgoing and how exuberant I am. And she was a little bit conservative and was very anxious in some way. And I said to her, thank you for sharing. And she was open to go. And we go out, we connect, mingle with people, listen to music, dancing. I didn't say anything about whether you're having a good time. Sometimes words don't matter. You could feel the energy. So here's what happened. We come back. I look her in the face, eye to eye, and I said, so what was your experience? She said to me, and she's in her 70s, she said to me, this was the best time I've had in my life. I went, wow, in a whole life. And I understand we have to be bold and be humble. That it's okay to be really different and really be whimsical. And it's amazing how many people, like Jay was talking about, live in shackles. And if we just let loose and just know that what we're really creating is a good feeling experience, you can never go wrong. And even people that you're with may have some trepidation or some anxiousness. It's okay, because the bottom line is they're going to feel some experience of joy and bliss that they might have never had in their lives before. So when we come from that divine place of oneness, of coherence and alignment and congruency with the whole thing, nothing could bring it down. The energy keeps vortexing and soaring. It's amazing the possibility and capability we have. But damn it all, we play so small. And we judge ourselves if we're playing big. Well, what are they going to say? What is she going to say? Who gives a darn's ass what anyone freaking says? Because guess what? If you don't have all these other people, you have the most important person in your life, and that's you. An opportunity to fall more deeply in love with yourself.
I'm curious, Sunwolf. You showed some emotion there. What's at the root of that? Why did you get emotional? Can you put that into words?
I have for a long time in my life observed people and felt their pain and suffering. And I feel also the roboticness of people. And I go, why? I mean, why are we so tight? It's just the sadness, because I pick up people's energy. I'm a little bit of an empath. So I pick it up and I kind of feel that loss, and look, how many people my age have a basketball in a trunk and a baseball and all these things, and I mean, why should we stop playing? In fact, I haven't ever lost my childhood, why should we stop doing this when we're at a certain age? Or why, it's all about being homogenized with our feelings in our heart, no matter what age, because age does not dictate how well we live life and choose love. Age doesn't factor in at all, but we play that game. Well, at 40, this is what's going to happen at 50. You know, I got to slow it down. Well, who says? Just like my mother said, well, one day you're going to, well, who says? And my uncle said this, and my peer said this. Who said? So I was very blessed in gratitude that I didn't freaking play the game. And it could have been so easy to play the game and go down a whole nother rabbit hole and compromise my whole life for the acceptance of others. What a word you used. It's just what a way to throw away the game of life.
But I think what you just described is the awareness of your relationship with that humbled warrior within, that you didn't sell out, and those moments perhaps when you did, you've always reeled yourself back in at some point to reconnecting here. And in those moments when you've experienced the true essence of your inner strength, that is no longer the fighting warrior, to be seen, to be heard, to be enough, to be worthy of love, to matter.
Amen.
When you meet yourself right here, I'd say 98% of your needs are met. Chris, I want to bounce it to you, man. Here's a volley. Again, how can or how has or how will this new relationship with a humbled warrior for you influence relationships outside of yourself? Friends, relatives, your children, potential partner?
Comes down to I don't have to be right. There's so much of my existence that came into me having to be right, you know. Having to be right put me in a holding cell in December. I don't have to I can just be who I am. I don't have to constantly be pushing, and I can move away from this this belief that there's something outside that is going to bring that home. Something that Kamalo said, kind of, I wanted to invite maybe a little bit different, you know, construct on that, is that we're not becoming anything. We're not raising or moving up to, but returning. We're returning to self, returning to who we've always been. I don't have to learn. I have to unlearn a lot of things. I have to move away from what I've told myself. And so I see me feeling complete and whole and creating from my joy as a great place to be a reflection for others, for the people that I invite into my life to see the joy in themselves, to create from their frequency, and that it's to help give context, maybe just help give context in that it's possible, like as Sunwolf has always done, creating from joy, creating from love. And when he hasn't, quickly get back into that space, right? Like we can choose to create from that space, and that's for myself, right? This isn't for anybody. My whole construct of all of my self-worth came from what I provided and did for others. And now I do this because it's for me. And because I do this for me, deeply for me, it will affect anyone I come into contact with.
What was
I
the
create
switch for
joy.
you, Chris? What was the switch? What was? Do you know the defining moment when you made that switch from doing for others? And as I just heard you say, I'm going to paraphrase what you said, but now it's about first doing it for you. What was that flip of that switch? That brought you-
15-minute conversation in January with Gabby Puma. 15 years with somebody who's one of the most powerful human, or 15 minutes with one of the most powerful human beings I've ever encountered on the side of a conference. Both of us bouncing back and forth because we both had to go pee. And that conversation unlocked my ability to fully understand that I am worthy. After 10 plus years of therapy and trying to find out why was I angry? Why was I violent? Why could I not, sit with myself? 15 minutes with her unlocked I am worthy. And it brought all of these changes. It unlocked all the ability to return to who I always have been. It's a very, very distinct and clear moment, just as clear as the moment of when that was said over me and I lost my sovereignty and gave it away. Yeah, it was. I don't know the exact date. I should probably have it written on a wall somewhere, but that was the moment.
Well, here's the key. That date is tattooed right here in your heart.
That moment.
It's just a number, man.
Yeah. The intensity in her eyes. Intensity in her eyes, man. Going from not being able to look, only being able to look somewhere kind of around her, to be able to make contact with her, eye contact with her, and look her in the face.
Well, I'm going to say this to you, Chris Morrison. Welcome home, brother.
Thank you, my man.
Yeah, it's. I know it's been a hell of a journey, and as it is for each one of us as beings having this human experience. With what time we have left, because you're not going to believe it, we have less than 8 minutes to the hour, and we haven't even tapped into this. But with what time we do have, I want to invite each one of you to share any tips, tricks, and tools for any of our viewers that may be watching us live this evening or picking us up on replay. Tips, tricks, and tools on how can we find that humbled warrior within if we haven't met him or her yet. Hold on, Sunwolf. I got to unmute you, buddy. Go ahead.
I just jumped from what's very freeing. First of all, you talk about surrender. Forgiveness is really the key to true health and happiness. And one of the things I really do that really frees me and gets me in touch with my humble warrior, that vulnerability, is asking people who are close to me to be totally candid with me with things that I may not be aware of. We all have blind spots. So I say, John, Mary, I really would appreciate that you're as candid with me as possible. And I always felt that the ugliest truth is more beautiful than its loveliest pretense. Please, I want to grow. And the best way I could grow is when there's candidness and transparency, and just let me know, because we all have blind spots, and go, wow, I didn't know. Thank you so much. So the love for me increases, and the appreciation and gratitude for the person totally being candid with me just soars. And that is so key, is that unbridled candor. And that's so precious, because this is not about living a perfect life. It's about having awareness and consciousness of things of my own incompetence. So that's when you have closeness and intimacy with you and the person sharing openly.
I want to challenge you to a small extent, Sunwolf, because you just actually invited that in this
I
segment.
love it. Challenge me. Good.
it's also when you explore, when you kind of move the dirt a little bit and you tap into how strong you really are. We tend to look at what we don't have versus what we're capable of. And so I think it's important that our viewers understand that we've played small in our life as men and women in many different aspects. And when we are finally step into courage and really test how strong we truly are, that's when we meet that warrior. It doesn't always have to be physical. I'm talking about the emotional, the mental, the spiritual. When we push through our own self limitations, as well as the ones that came from the programming in our life and the hard drive up here, it's a double team then. So, Kamalu, you've had some time to ponder. Any tips, tricks, and tools for our viewers on how they can find their way to meeting that humbled warrior within?
Hmm. I spoke on this a little bit before, um, about getting in touch with the body consciousness and really feeling what resonates and what doesn't. And if something resonates and feels like it's the right answer, it's the answer that's there before all the thoughts, I know I got to do it, but there's a layer of fear that comes up, that, or self-doubt that says I can't do that, or I'm not sure I can, to push forward anyways, even if it's hard, and even if you slip and you fall, figure it out. That's where I've met my humbled warrior, because I'm moving with purpose, I'm moving with direction, and it's my purpose, it's my passion, and knowing that I can continue moving forward even though there's all these perceived challenges that come up along my way. That's where I've met my humbled warrior. And I also just wanted to express, hearing Sunwolf and Jay both speak about their experiences meeting the humbled warrior. They're always waiting. They're always there. Whether you're 23, almost 63, I think Sunwolf, you're in your 70s. I'm not sure where
Yep.
Chris is.
72.
72. Chris, I'm going to guess mid 40s.
Early
40s. Yeah. It's always there. It's never too late. And whenever you're ready for it, they will be there for you.
Yeah, I totally agree, Kamalu. I mean, I think I was 55 or 56 years old when I first met that warrior within me.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's possible. And it's never too late. It's never too late. Chris, you're up, brother. What do you got? Tips, trick, or tool on how, from your own inner wisdom, on how someone can meet that humbled warrior? What would it take? What does it take?
Always be open. It can happen in any moment. You don't have to be seeking it. Don't probably even more so, don't be seeking it.
Mm.
It will come. And it's there. It's inside of you. I got to sit with my humbled warrior inside of a movie theater on Father's Day with my two kids, watching a simple kids movie. And just being open for the possibility that at any given time we can find we can have a download, and we can have a massive shift or understanding of something that's been there for decades. At any time, the universe can speak to us, speak through us. So be open.
Beautiful. I love that. I'm going to wrap it up by sharing this. Well, first, it's nice to have you with us again, Sunwolf, because you make it easy for me. I don't have to be. You get emotional, and I love when you when your emotions come through. Your vulnerability is just absolutely rock solid, and I thank you for having the courage to show up as your authentic self, as your humbled warrior. I've met him many times, I believe. So thank you for that. I do want to say for our viewers, you are unmuted. One more moment here. Do you have something you want to say, Sunwolf?
No, I was just going to say, and I'm the eldest. Who would ever think? Not you. Age-wise.
The first step, or one of the primary steps, is it's time to stop blaming, and it's time to stop shaming.
Mm.
When we are ready to take accountability, and accountability does not mean we live in, again, shame or guilt. Accountability is we own it. We acknowledge that we didn't know what we didn't know. I didn't know that part of living in the fighting warrior place in most of my life was because I had abandoned myself as that young man. I abandoned my own heart to defend my heart, to feel like I was going to be enough in my life. Accountability is owning, is acknowledging that. Yeah, I made a lot of missteps in my life. I hurt people. I hurt myself the most. And when you are willing, like I was, to own that truth, that's when we meet that humbled warrior. And I tell you what, there's no place else I'd rather be than home. And each time I think I've met that warrior within, there's always that next opportunity to meet him or her. And I want to suggest this to all of us, all of our viewers. Prayer isn't enough. It's the action. It's the doing. It's the taking accountability. It's the showing up for yourself. It's defying your own odds that society has tattooed, imprinted within you. When you set yourself free of all of that inner tattoo, that imprint, you will find out how strong you truly are. And in that moment, when you meet that inner strength, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, you will have experienced the most intimate relationship in your entire life. I wasn't alone yesterday. I had my best friend with me. But I tell you what, she gave me the space to honor. And I gave her the space to honor what she was processing or feeling physically, emotionally for over, I think, 5.5 hours. But I tell you what, when we made it back safely to our car with, yes, some bruises, some cuts, some pain, I was free one more time. She was free. We both honored our own experiences in those 5.5 hours. And I do believe, whether she's aware of it or not, she met a humbled warrior yesterday. That's how we do it. That's how we can do it. Get out of your head. Get into your heart. Get out of lack. Get into love. Here. Open that heart to receive. Open that heart to give. I wear one particular shirt, and I wear it quite often. It's called Choose Love. I got it in a few different colors, a few different styles. The reason you'll see me wear it in photos is because it provides some level of consciousness here. When I wear that apparel, I got to own it, man. How I show up, how I treat others, how I treat myself in those moments. There were a few moments yesterday where it got slippery. It got slick. One moment in particular, I didn't even mention it to Mary. I was behind her. It could have gone the other way. But I didn't cave in. Instead, I had absolute power within to step in here. And in that moment, I met that humbled warrior one more time. You guys are amazing.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for being a part of my journey. Thank you for holding me in those moments when you're not even aware how you are. This is what the true essence of life is about. It's holding space for one another. It's honoring one another as men and women so that we can all meet that humbled warrior within. And with that, viewers, if you heard something you like to love, please share it with your friends and family. Even watch the replay. Maybe you'll hear it differently the second time around. And with that, brothers, any closing thoughts, or anyone have anything you want to say before we put a pretty bow on the show and call it a wrap?
Wrap it up, sir. Loving you.
It's the theme. Stay open. I love that. Chris, too. Love what you just shared, Jay. Very fun.
Thank you. Viewers, we love you so much. Please keep coming back because you give us a reason for us to show up each week. And with that, I want to thank each one of you for joining us this evening. And we'll catch you next week on Real Men, Real Talk, Live.